Matt Eberflus has completely botched the Chicago Bears offensive play caller situation. If you're going to make a change, make a change. But the worst thing you can do is drag it out like this without giving anyone a clear answer.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by Ultimate Football GM. Use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. On the show today, we look at the decision that hasn't been made yet publicly about the Bears' offensive coordinator and offensive play calling situation and how Matt Eberflus keeps making it worse instead of making it better. Somehow we get through all of Monday without a definitive answer, and we're left on Tuesday wondering, is anything going to change, or are they still taking their time figuring out what the changes are going to be? And shouldn't they be doing regular football stuff right now too? So we'll kind of look at just how poorly this whole situation has been handled, and also then some of the ramifications of if they make a change and if they don't make a change. And we'll look at what some of the Chicago Bears' different options are and make sure that we're setting our own expectations in a reasonable spot and not expecting that changing the offensive coordinator is all of a sudden going to fix everything wrong with this Chicago Bears offense. But everything has been wrong with how Matt Eberflus has handled this situation from a public relations standpoint, from a communication standpoint, with the fan base, with the players, with the team, with everything. That we go through Monday without any real answer about this Bears offense. It's one thing if, okay, they want to take the morning to talk it over and evaluate things as a team, but as soon as Matt Eberflus has a noon press conference, you absolutely, at that point, have to provide some real answers. Like he did a radio interview on ESPN 1000, I think it was Cap and Hood, where he didn't have the answers at that point because it was still Monday morning, and I'm willing to give him that, to say, okay, maybe at 10 a.m. on a radio interview isn't where you want to announce to the world that you're going to change play callers or fire your offensive coordinator. I'll give you that. But when you have a scheduled press conference to meet with the media at noon, and you come out and say, sorry, we're still figuring that out. We'll let you know in the future. You can't do that. You can't handle it this way. You can't continue to let speculation run rampant, rumors run rampant, and not give people an answer here. Like, this is the opposite of like crisis management 101. The Bears are in an offensive crisis right now. Everyone is calling for offensive coordinator Shane Waldron's job. Everyone is demanding some kind of change on this offense. And it is Matt Eberflus's job as the head coach and leader of this organization to come out and quell some of that in some way, shape, or form by giving us answers, right? You have to come out and acknowledge that, okay, hey, yes, this is a thing. There is a problem here, and we are addressing that problem. He kind of did that part, but then you have to be specific about, okay, there's a problem, and we need to handle it, and here's how we're handling it. Here is exactly what we are going to do. So there is no doubt, no questions asked. This is the plan. We have a plan. Here's what we are doing, and here's how we are executing it. As opposed to what we got, which was, well, we're in the process of evaluating that right now. I think the exact quote was, there will be changes and adjustments being made, but I'm not going to discuss those right now. Where it's an evaluation process, we're going to evaluate that. Matt Eberflus was asked directly, will Shane Waldron still be your offensive coordinator on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers? He says, we're looking at everything. We're going to evaluate that and determine that still at this time, and would not give you any sort of definitive answer either way on if Waldron is fired, if Waldron is sticking around, if Waldron is losing play calling duties, if Waldron is keeping play calling duties, if anybody is losing anything. It really, if anything is changing, all we got is like, we're looking at it. We're looking at everything. The only definitive answer we got from Matt Eberflus throughout the press conference and at any point on Monday was that he stood by Caleb Williams as his starting quarterback. Because Adam Schefter had started a controversy Monday morning when he on the Pat McAfee show, and he floated out there that maybe the Bears could consider benching Caleb Williams for Tyson Bagent just to give him a couple weeks to slow down on the bench a little bit and then put him back out there after things settle down a little bit more. Schefter put that out there. I'm not sure why. Matt Eberflus was very quick to say, no, Caleb is our starting quarterback. We are not changing that. But then you can kind of read between the lines when Matt Eberflus is quick to say, no, Caleb's our starter. That's not changing. But what about your offensive coordinator? Well, we'll see. Those are two very different answers. That if Matt Eberflus had come out and said, no, Shane Waldron is not being fired. He is staying our offensive coordinator, and here are the reasons why, people would be mad, but at least we would have a direction and an understanding here. And vice versa. If he'd come out and said, yes, Shane Waldron's going to be fired and we're going to make a change there, whatever, then people would have been happy and you'd have an answer and we could kind of move on with our life. But instead, we're left here wondering, okay, you spent all of Monday going through this evaluation process about making a change. We now start Tuesday without knowing what changes the Bears are going to make. And I should apologize if the Bears do make a change early on Tuesday. I'm recording this podcast. I'll give you full transparency. I'm recording this podcast at midnight. So we have gotten exactly through all of Monday. I can guarantee that Monday has come and gone without the Bears making a change. Maybe they're jerks and do it first thing in the morning so that even before you listen to this podcast, a change has been made. But the fact that they have waited until Tuesday at all is already a big part of the problem. But more importantly here, we're left going, hey, wait a minute. You're taking all of Monday to make this process decision evaluation, and now some part of Tuesday. Shouldn't you be using Monday and Tuesday to be game planning for the Green Bay Packers, to be preparing your practice plan, to be watching tape on your opponent and scouting things down? Like, are you doing that right now? Are you doing that and evaluating if you're going to make a firing at the same time? Are you having meetings about this stuff? How are you both having these big discussions about firing somebody or not, and also properly getting ready for the Green Bay Packers this week? Like, it feels to me like those two things require attention that can't be done simultaneously. And so I'm concerned about how they're handling this. Like, it shouldn't take 24 hours to decide what you need to do to change your offense. Like that evaluation process should have started the moment the Patriots game ended. And even 24 hours later, that would be mid-Monday afternoon, you could make a change. And now we're more than 36 hours removed from the Patriots game and still no decision. So are they not going to make a change there? I do wonder. And this is where we get into dangerous territory as far as prediction stuff. But like, if I could bet on this at FanDuel Sportsbook, I would bet that Shane Waldron isn't fired straight up, but maybe loses play calling duties. And we'll kind of go through why I don't think Shane Waldron is going to be straight up fired, but still maybe some changes on offense next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate Pro Football GM. They're back and have added an amazing new game mode that you got to hear about. This is the game that helps you step into the shoes of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory. And now they have a new head coach career mode. So on top of getting to build your dynasty by drafting players and signing free agents, now you also get to call offensive plays during games as well. So if you think you can do a better job than Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, you got to check out the Ultimate Pro Football GM game. If you have it installed already, be sure to do an update so you can try out the new game mode. And if you don't have it yet, download it now. It's a must-have for all football fans. I know you'll love it, and it's completely free. That's the big thing here. No ads, and it's 100% playable offline. So you can play Ultimate Pro Football GM on the go whenever you want, wherever you want. Right now, Locked On Bears listeners can use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL inside the game store, and you're going to receive a free boost to your franchise. It'll jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you'll want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. America's #1 sportsbook. We'll see if any offensive changes have an impact on the betting lines for Bears-Packers, but right now the Bears are plus 6.5 points against the spread. The money line for a Bears upset is plus 220, and the over-under is at 41.5 points. FanDuel wants to help you get started with a big return on your bet because new customers can put down a $5 bet on any of those or any bet of your choice. And if your bet wins, they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets on top of your regular bet winnings. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL as well. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Everyone wants to see Shane Waldron fired. And I think generally firing him is the right decision to send a message of accountability to this team. That what they've had on offense has not been enough, and that the voice leading the room on offense needs to be different. But if gun to my head, if I had to predict here and bet on what the Bears do, I don't think they're going to fire Shane Waldron altogether, like terminate his contract and remove him from the coaching staff. I think what they will do is announce that Thomas Brown will be the play caller moving forward, but Shane Waldron will remain the offensive coordinator, but just not the play caller offensive coordinator. And I think there's a couple of key reasons for that. One, Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles are very, very loyal to their people. They do not make those changes quickly or easily. We saw Ryan Poles cry in Hard Knocks when he was letting go of Adrian Colbert, one of the Bears' safeties. Like he makes relationships with people, and Matt Eberflus does too, and relationships is what they talk about over and over and over again. And I think it would be a little bit damaging to the trust of the coaching staff among the coaches if Matt Eberflus fires Shane Waldron 9 games into his tenure as Bears offensive coordinator, that it would feel like a short leash and guys might start to be looking over their backs and, not trusting that, if I make a mistake, am I going to be the next guy fired? Is Eberflus, could anything like that happen? So I think that's part of it. But the bigger picture here is that if Matt Eberflus fires Shane Waldron, he is digging his own grave as Chicago Bears head coach. If Matt Eberflus fires this offensive coordinator, he will not be allowed to hire a third offensive coordinator. There's no way that he gets through this season and the Bears say, yeah, you know what? Take another shot at it. Bring in another offensive coordinator with Eberflus as the head coach still. There's just no chance the Bears give him a shot at a third offensive coordinator. So if he fires Shane Waldron, is he not sort of ensuring his own firing? Because you fire Shane Waldron, you get to the end of the year, he's not picking a replacement. You're gone too. So I don't see Shane Waldron firing as protecting a ton of Matt Eberflus's job security there. If anything, it feels like it's dooming some of his job security, with maybe one exception here. That if you fire Shane Waldron and formally promote Thomas Brown to offensive coordinator, maybe then Thomas Brown could be the only way he could save his job. That, okay, Eberflus isn't allowed to pick a new offensive coordinator, but say he fires Waldron, makes Thomas Brown offensive coordinator, and Thomas Brown has a good enough rest of the season where he gets to stay on as offensive coordinator. So it's not as though Eberflus is picking a third coordinator. It's like he got it. If he somehow finds a way to get it right with Thomas Brown, I guess that could be a way for Eberflus to save his job. But then you're firing Shane Waldron with the idea that your whole job is then tied to whether Thomas Brown works as an offensive coordinator or not. And we've seen Thomas Brown be an offensive coordinator for one season last year with the Carolina Panthers, where they were maybe the worst offense in football. So if I'm Matt Eberflus, do I want to put my job in the hands of Thomas Brown, who's going to be a different offensive voice, but isn't very experienced and his experience is not very good? Or do I put my job in the hands of Shane Waldron still, who is obviously doing a bad job right now, but did a better job earlier this season with this Bears team, and more importantly, has done a better job in the past? We've seen Shane Waldron be a decent offensive coordinator before in the NFL. We've never seen Thomas Brown be a decent offensive coordinator in the NFL. Maybe he could be, but that's a lot to risk your job on. Maybe he could be. Whereas at least you've seen Waldron do it before, and maybe could have a little bit more faith, if I'm Matt Eberflus, that Waldron could get back to being a better offensive coordinator. And that's where I come back to where it feels like a more natural decision to say Waldron stays the offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown takes over as play caller. Because then you're not firing your offensive coordinator, you're not risking any of that stuff in terms of trust among the coaching staff and stuff. You're also not being then tasked with, picking a third offensive coordinator if somehow you keep your job. But play calling duties are flexible enough here, right? Where you could take play calling duties away from Shane Waldron right now and then give them back to Shane Waldron at some point. Like you take them away now just to sort of get a fresh voice in there and see if things are different. But like say the Bears find a way to save Matt Eberflus's job this season and the whole staff comes back next year, and you could give Shane Waldron play calling duties back without ever having fired him and kind of give him another shot at it. Like we've seen coaches do this before where play calling duties kind of change. I think Matt Nagy and Bill Lazor did this a little bit, right? Where Nagy was the play caller, then gave it to Lazor, and then at some point Nagy kind of took it back. And there were some weeks where we were never really sure who exactly was calling the plays for the Chicago Bears under Matt Nagy. And so I think that's a way where Matt Eberflus can kind of play both sides here, where it's like, hey, I'm showing some accountability by changing who the play caller is, but I'm not going to fire my buddy here who I've built this relationship with, and I'm not going to doom myself by making the team feel like I don't get to pick a third offensive coordinator because I still get to keep my offensive coordinator and still trust that I've got a guy who's a good coach on our staff, but we just need a different voice calling the plays, right? You can kind of hear the BS already, but like that's what I'm expecting to hear through this situation. Who knows? Maybe they can surprise us and say, yeah, we're making a firing, but I think if he fires Shane Waldron, that is the beginning of the end of Matt Eberflus. That ensures Matt Eberflus's departure. Like you might already think his departure is insured, but like you never know. But if you fire Shane Waldron, he's not going to pick a third offensive coordinator. There's just no way this Bears front office lets Matt Eberflus pick a third offensive coordinator. And that's why I think Matt Eberflus is looking at this saying, I can't fire Shane Waldron or else I'm screwed. So I got to ride this ship. If I got to ride this ship with Shane Waldron, what can I do to make a change and try and calm down this firestorm? Change the play calling, give it to the passing game coordinator. That doesn't have to be, I guess, the only option. You don't have to give it to Thomas Brown. And I don't know, maybe he does think an interim offensive coordinator in lieu of Shane Waldron could do a better job of saving his job. So we'll look at what the options are. Is it just Thomas Brown or bust, or are there other options up front? And what will changing offensive coordinators really even do for this team anyway? That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, the better way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. I have the Gametime app on my phone, and I use it all the time. I use it to go see concerts. I use it to go see comedians. I just saw Mike Birbiglia, and I just got the Jim Gaffigan tickets as well coming up for next year. It's going to be a birthday present for my dad, who I hope is not listening to this because it's supposed to be a surprise for him. But I love Gametime because with Gametime, you can see a panoramic view from the seat that you're purchasing before you buy it. So you know what you're going to get when you show up at the venue. And you can also turn on all-in pricing, so that you know how much your tickets are going to cost before you get to the checkout process, and there aren't any of those added fees throughout that process that make the tickets cost way more than you thought you would when you first picked them out, and then you got to start over, and it's a whole annoying process. None of that happens with Gametime. That's why we say take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. The harsh reality of the Chicago Bears' offensive problems right now is that firing Shane Waldron or switching play calling duties to someone else isn't going to solve all the problems on your offense. Yes, it would help. Presumably, it feels like you can't do much worse from a play calling standpoint, but the Bears' problems on offense do go deeper than who's the one signaling the plays into Caleb Williams. Of course, if Shane Waldron's no longer calling plays, you're not going to get handoffs at the goal line to Doug Kramer. and you're not going to get speed option plays at the goal line that lose 13 yards, and you're not going to get 3rd and 2 passes into the backfield to DJ Moore that get blown up. You're not going to get, as many, hopefully not as many shotgun runs on 4th and inches, right? Like, there are specific areas that changing play callers can improve. But even if you take away all those play calls we just talked about, that fix the Bears offense? Are they scoring more than 3 points if you fix some of those play calls against the New England Patriots? Because firing your offensive coordinator is not going to fix 4 backup offensive linemen. Firing your offensive coordinator is not going to make those injured offensive linemen healthier. Is firing your offensive coordinator going to make Rome Odunze catch that ball he dropped against the Patriots? Is firing your offensive coordinator going to make Keenan Allen and DJ Moore run their routes a little harder and get open? Is firing Shane Waldron going to make Caleb Williams more decisive as a passer and hold on to the ball less long? I mean, maybe a new voice leading the offensive room can motivate guys differently and have them buy in a little bit more if they're not really buying into the message right now from Shane Waldron. But like, some of this stuff is a little bit deeper, right? Some of this stuff is a little bit more of a culture thing. It's a little bit more of like they've collectively as a staff been hammering it to Caleb Williams to not make mistakes, don't throw interceptions, take care of the ball, and making him tentative as a thrower. I don't think changing the offensive coordinator is just going to instantly unlock all of that again out of Caleb Williams, because whoever your new offensive coordinator would be is going to be somebody already in the building. And one of those voices that's been saying a lot of the same things as Shane Waldron, right? We talk about how the coaching staff is in sync, right? That the quarterback's coach, the passing game coordinator, and the offensive coordinator have all been supposed to be telling Caleb Williams the same thing. They've all been supposed to be telling the wide receivers the same thing, the running backs the same thing, the offensive line the same thing. So if you take Shane Waldron out of the mix, okay, yeah, that's the head of the snake there. But Thomas Brown's been in those same meetings saying the same thing. Chris Morgan, the O-line coach, has been in those same meetings saying the same thing. Like, I don't know that instantly changes a bunch about this offense. Again, I think it's still a good idea to change offensive coordinators and play callers because of the message it sends and the accountability side of things. But I don't want us to sit here and say, if we find out on Tuesday that, boom, Shane Waldron's fired, he's out of the building, whatever, that, okay, all of a sudden, the Bears offense this week is going to put up 25 points on the Packers. Like, nope, that's not how that's going to work. I mean, maybe they do, but it's not going to be because of the offensive coordinator change. I think there would be a bump. I think there would be more energy. I think there would be more, just the vibes would be better on offense, just because a change is sometimes can spur some of that stuff. But it's not going to solve all of the problems, no matter who you put in that spot. But it doesn't feel like they have a lot of different options as far as who they put in the spot. I mean, we keep talking about passing game coordinator Thomas Brown because Thomas Brown was the only Bears assistant coach on offense that has NFL experience as an offensive coordinator. You look at the rest of the board, it's a lot of Shane Waldron guys. Quarterbacks coach Kerry Joseph was the QB coach and previously assistant QB coach with Waldron in Seattle. Never been an OC before in his career. Chad Morton was the running backs coach in Seattle with Shane Waldron. Chris Beatty was a wide receivers coach with the Rams and the Chargers after that, but was with Shane Waldron under Sean McVay with the Rams. Like, if you fire Shane Waldron and promote a guy who's been on his coaching staffs with him, how different is that really going to be? Like, this is an offensive coaching staff full of Shane Waldron guys. Like, your only two outsiders are your tight ends coach, Jim Dre, who just retired from playing tight end like 5 years ago. Your tight end coach is younger than Mercedes Lewis, for the record here. Like, Mercedes Lewis was drafted, played his whole career, and is still in his career in the time that Jim Dre was drafted and retired, got into coaching, and got to be the Bears tight ends coach. He's not on the list of offensive coordinator candidates. So the only option for a quote-unquote, outsider sort of offensive coordinator would be your offensive line coach, Chris Morgan, who got the promotion to running game coordinator. But when you look at this Bears offense, which position do you think is getting coached the worst? Because to me, it feels like the offensive line, right? We haven't seen Coleman Shelton play well at all this season. We haven't seen Braxton Jones get better. We haven't seen Darnell Wright really get much better. We've seen Tevin Jenkins struggle. Like, where have we seen offensive linemen on this Bears team get better? For all the ways that Ryan Poles raved about the depth of this offensive line, like, we just haven't really seen offensive line progress there. So I don't have much faith in Chris Morgan. Honestly, if I'm firing Shane Waldron, I would fire Chris Morgan as well. If you're going to make the changes, if you're going to fire somebody anyway, fire Chris Morgan, promote your assistant offensive line coach, Jason Huftling, to full offensive line coach and get a different voice that way. But I'm not promoting Chris Morgan to offensive coordinator after how poor of a job with the offensive line I felt like he's done. So it really feels like your only choice is passing game coordinator Thomas Brown, which is not the worst choice in the world. But again, his only year as an NFL offensive coordinator was I think the Panthers last year were 30th in scoring and 32nd in yards. Like, it doesn't get much worse. And then of course, like, there was a bad Panthers team, and Frank Reich was the head coach, and it's not all Thomas Brown's fault, but more so just not a lot of evidence to have a lot of faith in him. I mean, your wide receivers coach Chris Beatty was a co-offensive coordinator at the college level, I think at Illinois and Maryland, if I remember correctly, a co-offensive coordinator. It's not even a full offensive coordinator, and not at the NFL level. So, like, that's something, but I don't think any of those guys are going to jump Thomas Brown at this point. So it just doesn't feel like there's a great solution here, and I don't feel like any of the options are going to drastically improve your offense. So I come back to the same thing. It's accountability. It's sending a message, but it's not really fixing the problem. The offense has to find other ways to get better. Like the evaluation process and the Matt Eberflus saying, hey, we're going to make changes. Those changes have to go beyond who's calling the plays and who the offensive coordinator is. Like, you can't just do that and say, all right, we're good to go, right? You guys happy now? The offense, we did the thing. Is the fan base happy? Like, no. The offense needs to play better too. And it sure is hard to imagine they will play better against the Green Bay Packers defense, the Minnesota Vikings defense, or the Detroit Lions defense than they did against the New England Patriots defense. I mean, weird things happen in division games, so never say never. But I don't like the odds of the offense figuring anything out of real progress in the next 3 weeks. And that's going to make it a long 3 weeks. So I hope you'll keep making Locked On Bears a part of your daily listening habit to help you get through what I think are going to be a pretty long 3 weeks. And oh, wait, the 49ers are after that? I mean, God, it's gonna be a long little stretch here, but that's why we got to band together, buckle down, and keep checking in every single day to kind of check on each other here and be a part of this process. We're gonna turn our attention to this Bears-Packers game here shortly. We're gonna have crossover Thursday with our friends from Locked On Packers. I know you all love Peter Bukowski, but he is a really good dude. Like, I talk to Peter a lot. He's a good guy. I know he represents a lot of what we don't like about Green Bay Packers fans, and I think he's good at playing that up on the podcast. And I'll let you in on a little bit of behind the scenes. Like, that's a little bit of a character. Like, it's not fully, I mean, he leans into it, right? Like, this is a little bit of a performance type medium here too, right? We lean into it a little bit and have a little fun with it. And Peter's jabs at the Bears are a lot more calculated and in jest than some sort of like real hatred or real dislike. So you give him a shot on crossover Thursday here, even though the Bears are definitely going to be a punching bag for Packers fans all week long. But again, that's why we stick together. That's why we've got the Locked On Bears podcast to help you get through it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're looking for a second listen, check out one of our other shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On NFL, now with 2 shows every day. And I co-host Locked On NFL on Tuesdays with Tyler Rowland in the morning. We talked about the Dolphins-Rams Monday Night Football game, and then we got into the wild card playoff races in the AFC and the NFC, and which teams we trust to make a run to make the wild card here, and briefly mentioned where the Bears fit into that mix it up as well. So go check out Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get a little more of me, but talk a little more broadly NFL. Then come back tomorrow, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for your next opportunity to bear down.